Hello everybody and welcome back to another tips and tricks video for Fury of Dracula. For anybody who's watching this on YouTube, just to let you know I'm actually recording this live on Twitch, so everybody who's in the Twitch chat, feel free to say hello to the people on YouTube. You're going to see their comments and stuff popping up during the video. They'll be asking questions, interacting, all that good stuff. We've got a mixture of different people here. We've got people from the Fury of Dracula community, plus lots of my very loyal Twitch.
Hello there.
Thank you for the hello there, very good. We've got people from, Fury of Dracula community, people from my normal Twitch community, and I'm going to be teaching some Fury of Dracula today. So this is going to be a Fury of Dracula 101 video where we go through the basics of Fury of Dracula. And then in some other videos I'm going to release later on, I'm going to show you the very sort of basic Hunter strategy and the very basic Dracula strategy. I will talk about it a little bit today, but today is more or less about the rules, what the board looks like, all that sort of thing. There we go. Right, without further ado, let's jump in. So what I'll do is I'm going to show both perspectives of the board for this. So we'll just jump in against the AI. We don't care that the AI is rubbish. We'll just let the AI do its thing. And yep, she'll just have everything equipped. That's fine, and we'll just jump straight into this. Okay, right. So, let me pick my starting. So when you got 4 hunter characters, we'll go into that in a second. Let me just put my initial location down, otherwise that's going to frustrate me. And then once Dracula's picked a starting location, we'll go into some basic things. Right. So, when I teach board games, the first thing I always like to teach is the objective of the game, because you need to have that in your head before I start teaching you about rules and strategy and stuff. So the strategy of Fury of Dracula, or the objective, depends on what side of the board you're playing. This game is asymmetric in the sense that you'll have normally a group of people playing as the hunter characters. There are 4 hunter characters. Doesn't matter how many people you have playing on the hunter team, you always have the 4 hunter characters. So you can play up to between 1 and 4 people playing as the hunters, and then you've got 1 person playing a Dracula on the evil side of the board. The hunter objective is very simple. Dracula has, at the beginning of the game, 15 health. If at any point during the game, Dracula's health is reduced to 0, the hunters instantly win the game. That's how that works. That's the hunters' only... Well, that's their primary objective. That is the overarching objective. There are other things they have to do during the game, but that is the principal objective. If any time that happens, they win the game. Dracula is trying, on the other hand, Dracula is trying to obtain vampiric influence. This is what this meter or thermometer, as my Twitch chat like to call it, up the left-hand side. This is the calculation of his vampiric influence that he's trying to spread throughout Europe. He accumulates influence in different ways, but basically, if his influence ever reaches a value of 13, Dracula instantly wins the game. Those are the primary objectives for both sides. But throughout the game, they're going to have to do other things to ensure that the other side does not gain a significant advantage towards that primary objective. That's the essence of the game. If you don't know what the game is, it is a game of asymmetry and hidden movement and deduction, and also rock, paper, scissors-esque combat, resource management, all that, psychology, bluffing, all that good stuff. So there you go. Okay, so Meki's making a very good point. When we play Digital Edition, we normally play 1v1, which means I'll be controlling all 4 hunter characters, or my opponent will be controlling all 4 hunter characters, and then they have to do all the thought process themselves. When you're playing round the group, if you've got 2 or 3 or 4 people playing as the hunters, they can communicate with each other in terms of trying to work out strategy and working out what they should do on their turns, but Dracula can hear everything that they can talk about, except there is an exception to that rule, which will be when there are trades between certain hunter characters. I'm saying characters and not players, because that, because you have 1 person controlling 2 characters potentially. So when you've got 2 characters which are trading, they can then discuss things like the event cards and the item cards and strategy in secret. So that's really cool. So, oh, you've moved to Europe to spread your vampiric influence. Oh, very interesting, Beans. So I know what side of the board you want to be on. Okay. Right. So, the way the game works is the 4 hunter characters pick their initial locations, and then Dracula will place down his initial location, But you'll notice that there's no Dracula marker on the board, and that's because Dracula is always hidden unless he is revealed by some sort of event or a hunter moving onto his location, etc. The trail at the top of the screen here is showing where Dracula's current location is, which is the space on the left, and then all the other spaces show you where he has moved previously. So Dracula's picked a location somewhere on this board, and then Dracula on his turn is going to be moving. In general, there are rules to break this, but in general, Dracula can move from one city into an adjacent city. He can also go into sea and stuff. We'll talk about all that later once we're on the Dracula side of the board. Okay, so the hunters pick their starting locations. Dracula picks the starting location, which can't be the same city as another hunter, and it can't be a sea space, but then once that's done, or Castle Dracula for that matter, but once that's done, then the game starts. The way the game functions is with a day-night cycle, as we're actually going to be progressing through the days of the week. During the day and night phase, each hunter player, or each hunter character, I should say, has one action, and they always progress in the same order. Lord Godalming goes first, and then Dr. Seward, and then Van Helsing, and then Mina. This order is hardwired into the game, so you don't play clockwise around the table, you do it in the order according to your characters. So they're always playing this order. There's an exception to this rule, but we'll deal with that later. Most of the actions that the hunters can do during the day and during the night phase are the same. So what I'll do is I'll show you what you can do during the day, and then I'll talk about the exceptions for the night phase. So the first action, actually my camera's blocking a little bit, so I'm just going to move my camera just for 1 second while I go through this. I'm actually going to move this to the bottom here, because you don't need to see this bottom bit now. Okay, so here on the digital edition, here are all the possible actions that the hunters could do. So the first one is to move. Hunters can move in 3 different ways. They can move by carriage, which means they can move from the city that they're currently in into an adjacent city using the red road lines to move. Often, when we're talking in commentary, we often say they're walking, even though they're not walking, they're using carriage. Never mind. Okay? So you'll notice that all the cities on the map, well, not all of them, but a lot of them are connected to each other by these red lines. So you can move along the red lines. So Godalming, where he's currently situated in Vienna, can move up to Prague, or into Munich, or into Budapest, or in Zagreb, because these are the 4 adjacent cities to Vienna. You can also move by train. So you'll notice that there are other lines on the board. There are white lines and yellow lines. These are the rail lines. As you'd expect, rail lines often move you further than you would by road, and there are certain connections, like for example between Szeged and Bucharest, which is only possible by rail, not by road. If you want to go by road, you have to go via Belgrade or via Klausenburg. The problem with rail movement is you have to have already acquired a rail ticket in order to do that. So I won't do that just yet, but there is another action you can do, which is reserve a ticket. You have to reserve a ticket, and then on a later turn, you use the ticket to move. So reserving a ticket, there's a pile of tickets which sit in a pile on the table, or in the game, they're hidden from view. And when you reserve a ticket, you dip your hand into the pool and pull one out, and then you can have it in your hand and you can use it later to move by rail. You can hold onto 2 tickets maximum for every character. And I won't show you just yet, but the tickets, I'll show you a bit later. The tickets have a white number on them and a yellow number on them. The yellow number tells you how much you can move by yellow lines, and the white one shows you how much you can move by white lines. Sometimes you might want to move a combination of white and yellow lines. For example, if you want to go from Paris to Milan, there's 1 white rail and 1 yellow rail. So you'd have to use the yellow number. If you had a yellow 2 on your ticket, you could go from Paris to Milan. The white number means exclusive travel on white lines. The yellow number is for yellow lines and a mixture of yellow and white lines. There you go. Oh yes, that's true. Dracula's scared of trains. We'll talk about that later, but yeah. Oh, you want me to zoom in a little bit? There you go. See, there you can see the colour of the train tracks and things. The objective for Dracula, Julie, is to get this thermometer on the left-hand side up to 13. That's his vampiric influence. When I get onto Dracula's side of the board, I'll explain how you do that, but that's the basic premise. Okay. The other thing that hunters can do is they can move between sea zones. You'll notice that we've got the city spaces, we've also got these different sea zones here. Godalming can't do it because he's not on a port city. But if you're in a port city, you can also move by sea. Or boat, as it's called in here. So if you're moving by boat, you move from a port city into the adjoining sea space. Or, if you're already in a sea space, you can go from a sea space into an adjoining port, or from a sea zone to a neighbouring sea zone. That's how that works. So for example, if I was in Marseille, I can move from Marseille into the Mediterranean. And then the following day, I can move from the Mediterranean into any of the ports which are adjacent or are on the Mediterranean Sea, so Marseille, or Barcelona, or Alicante, or Cagliari. Or I can move from the Mediterranean into the Tyrrhenian or into the South Atlantic. There you go. Okay. No. If Dracula gets 13 influence, he wins. The hunters win when they kill Dracula, when Dracula loses all of his health. That's how that works. Okay. But obviously, if Dracula gets anything less than 13 influence, he doesn't win the game. Okay. So those are the different movements that hunters can do. You can do a rail ticket. I'll do it later, and I'll show you. You can rest. So when hunters all have a health pool. So Godalming has 11, Suit has 9, Van Helsing has 8, and Mina has 9. If at any point they take damage from any sort of situation, combat or encounter or whatever, then they can heal. If they heal up 1. Just to let people know who are in, especially people here who are familiar with Fury of Dracula, I am explaining the basic premise of the game, and I'll do all the exceptions later. Okay. You can also search. Search is not relevant yet. We'll talk about that later. So we'll just park that and we'll come back to it later. There are special actions. So basically there are certain actions which are not anything to do with the actions that I'm currently explaining. They're like exceptions. There are certain event cards that trigger as special actions. There's a particular item that triggers as a special action. And there are also certain abilities that hunters have which are special actions. So basically anything that is not one of the basic actions I'm explaining is a special action. You've also got supply. Supply is something I'm going to show you right now, because this is what I want to do. So I want Godalming to supply. So when you supply, you do two things. Well, you definitely do one thing every time. If you're in a city, you can only supply if you're in a city. If it's sea, you can't supply. If you supply, you take the top event from this event deck. So you see there are decks of cards down here at the bottom of the screen. The left-handmost one are the event cards. You draw the top event from that deck of cards. If it has a little bat symbol on it, like this one does, you just discard it. If it has a white backing, then it's a hunter card, and the hunters keep it. And then it might trigger immediately, they might keep it, it just depends. If the hunters are on a big city, the big cities are the ones which are square, not the ones which are diamonds. So, for example, Vienna is 1, London is 1, and Madrid is 1. I think about half of them are big cities. I'm not actually counted, but never mind. You can tell the ones which are big cities because they're squares. The ones which are diamonds are the small cities. If it's a big city, you also obtain the top item from the item deck, and that's this deck in the middle. Items are objects which can help you later on in the game to deal with the encounters, fight Dracula, all that good stuff. So I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to supply with Godalming. Now, you'll notice I've picked up 2 items there with Godalming. That's because Godalming's ability is that he supplies items twice as quickly. So that's not the game contradicting me. All other hunters supply 1 item if they supply in a big city. But Godalming does it twice. And he drew the top event. It was a Dracula event. We don't care. Okay, let's keep going. I'll supply with Seward. Okay, there's 1 item. And there's an event. Okay. This event, I'm actually going to just quickly turn off something here, because I forgot to do that. So this event is a hunter event, but because of you, as soon as you pick up a hunter event, you read what the card says. If it says play immediately, you have to activate it immediately. Some cards are not play immediately, and you can put it into your hand and hold it. So this was a hired scouts. The board is lit up like a Christmas tree. I have to pick 2 cities, and if Dracula has any of these locations along the trail at the top, which corresponds to the cities that I've chosen, he has to reveal them. So let's pick, I don't know, let's say Nantes and Hamburg. Nope, he's not there. We just keep playing. If this location was Nantes or Hamburg, it'd reveal it. If there's a space further on down the trail that was Nantes or Hamburg, that would get revealed too. So we'll just keep supplying. This is what we normally do in the first week of the game. So we'll keep supplying. Mina's going to get a Heavenly Host item. And then Evil Presence. This is another card that you draw immediately. It says play immediately. Dracula must announce the name of each hunter who is adjacent to his current location. Dracula is not adjacent, so Dracula is in none of the cities which are adjacent to where the hunters currently are. That includes sea spaces, funny enough. Okay? And that's it. Because all 4 hunters have done an action, that is the day phase over. And you'll notice now the clock in the left-hand corner has now gone into the night phase. So, there's another action that I didn't explain after supply, which is trade. Trade is when, if you've got 2 hunters which are in the same city, they can talk privately to each other, and they can show each other their events and items, and they can trade items and also train tickets between each other, and they can distribute them however they want. So that's the way they can do private trades and discussions and things. So that's what that action is. So we've spoken about all the different actions that the hunters can do during the day phase. Right. Now that it's the night phase, all the actions that the hunters can do are exactly the same, but with 2 exceptions. Hopefully I've not forgotten any. 2 exceptions. Firstly, you'll notice that the move icon is greyed out. Unless there is an event card that allows you to do it, hunters are not allowed to move at night. At night, hunters are always stationary. They can only move during the day phase, because at night time it's too dangerous or whatever. And the other thing that is different is the supply action. The action works exactly the same. If you're in a big city, you supply an item card. And you also draw an event card regardless of where you are on the map, unless you're at sea. The difference is, instead of drawing from the top of the event deck, where you can see if it's an event that's going to be beneficial for the hunters or beneficial for Dracula, you draw for the bottom of the deck. And it means you don't know what sort of card you're going to get. If you pull the bottom card and it's a hunter card, then the hunter keeps it and you activate it. And you read the card, and if it activates, it activates. If you need to keep it, you keep it. If you draw the card from the bottom of the deck, and it's a Dracula event card, it doesn't get discarded like it does during the day phase. It goes into Dracula's hand, and it's a card that then Dracula can use to really mess around with the hunters. So if you're ever watching us play in our Digital Edition community, you'll notice that we very rarely night supply, because we don't want to give Dracula these events, because Dracula can really do some damage with them. So, what I'm going to do at night here is I'm going to reserve the tickets, because I want to show you what the tickets look like. Oh yes, thank you, Matt King. Yes, the event deck is distributed into 75 cards in total, 50 for the hunters, 25 for Dracula. So there's a 2 out of 3 majority for the hunter events. There you go. Get the words out. So, when you reserve a train ticket, you normally only take 1 ticket from the pile. But Godalming, because he's wealthy, he gets 2. So he's like the items he's supplying quicker. So here are the tickets. So you see what the tickets look like. We've got 1 here, which actually doesn't have a white. It only has a white number. It doesn't have a yellow number. And we've got this ticket over here, which has a white number and a yellow number. If you think about the tickets purely in terms of the good ones are the ones that let you move further, these 2 tickets are really bad. Because there are some tickets which get you to move up to 3 white spaces or 2 yellow spaces. So if we think about it from the perspective of these tickets won't move me very far. But actually, when we think about the strategy involved with the game, these tickets are actually really good for me to have right now. It's a bit of a tricky one. Yes, Dracula is normally a human. I'm just playing AI right now, but I'm going to play a game against the Terminator later, where he'll be probably as Dracula. It's normally a human player. You can't... It's not like Wingspan, where you've got the Atoma. If you're going to play this in person, you have to have at least 2 people. You need to have 1 person on Dracula, and you have to have at least 1 person playing Hunters. You cannot play Atoma, or with an AI or something. In the Digital Edition, it's different. I'm going to do the same thing with Seward. Okay, here's a ticket that can move you 2 white, 2 yellow. Van Helsing does the same. And then we'll do another one. So I'm not going to really get in depth with the strategy just yet. We'll do that in the Hunter video, but The different tickets have different values. Dracula's Dark Calling. We'll ignore the AI. We'll just let the AI do his thing. So what I'm going to do for a couple of turns, I'm just going to supply up for a bit. And just see, hopefully we can see some events and we can maybe then talk about them a little bit more. So this is something that's happening. There is an exception, but in general, the hunters can only hold on to 3 items and 3 events at once. They always draw events and items before they have to discard, because if they draw an event, which is play immediately, they play it immediately, and it's not contributing towards their hand size. Same with the items, but the items, there's not any items that you can instantly discard in terms of using them. So because Gadami here has 4 items in his hand, he has to discard 1 now. So I'm going to get rid of these dogs. Oh yes, I didn't explain because I'm only thinking about the hunter perspective. Right, as soon as the hunters have all done their night action, then Dracula does a turn. I'm just so hyper-fixated on the hunters right now, but you're right. So basically what happened there was hunters do the 4 day turns, 1 each, and then it's the night phase, and they all do an action each. And then it becomes the Dracula phase, and Dracula does his thing. What Dracula should normally do is move from one city into an adjacent city. But don't worry, when we do the Dracula 101, I'll show you. Don't worry. Right, I'm going to keep supplying, just to see if we get some different things. Anything really critical we should talk about? Oh, more hired scouts. Okay, let's see if we can find him this time. So I'll pick 2 cities. So let's pick Bari and let's pick Bucharest. No, I didn't get him. Damn. Damn. Blood transfusion. Right. Dracula 101. This event card is the worst event card in the game. Just like you know. No, it's not Dark Call rule, Geordie. That would have been funny. Correct, Julie. Hunters get actions during the day, actions during the night, and then Dracula does his turn. Because obviously Dracula doesn't do anything during the day. Because, you know, he's sleeping in his jar of dirt. Right. I'm going to show you a couple of additional actions. Not true, Scotsword. Long Night is even worse. Debatable. Snuff would argue that Long Night's very good. Okay, Long Night and Blood Transfusion together are the worst cards in the game. There we go. Happy? Right, I'm going to show you the trade action. So, Mina and Godalming are inside the same city. So, using Godalming's night turn, we're going to activate a trade. So, you'll notice in this situation, we see all of Mina's items, and we also see of Dracula's items, Godalming's items, and also train tickets. I can now distribute these however I want, and if these were 2 separate people, they could talk secretly and talk about the different things. We'll do this, just to do something different like that. Okay. Not that I'm really thinking about what I'm doing, but that's fine. We'll trade that around. Boom. Done. Okay. Seward takes ticket. This is normally when you watch us play. This is what we do. We supply during the day and then ticket at night. Right. I'm now going to show you something else. So, as Met King alluded to in the chat, every hunter has their own unique traits that break the rules that I previously mentioned. So, let's go through them all in turn. Godalming's ability, if you want to call it that way, is that he's wealthy. So he supplies items twice as fast. He gets 2 items a turn on big city spaces rather than 1, if he supplies. And he also gets 2 tickets at a time rather than 1. Seward's ability is... his main ability is that he can hold up to 4 events and 4 items at a time. So he's exceeding the normal hand limit for events and items by 1 each. Van Helsing's special ability allows him to trade with 2 conditions. He can trade normally, like I've shown you, but he can also trade if he is not in the same city as another hunter. But if he does this trade, he can trade events and not items. Van Helsing is the only character in the game who can trade events, and he can do it even if he's not in the same city as that other hunter. But if he wants to trade items, he has to do it the normal way. So Van Helsing, I saw something in the chat saying Van Helsing is a weak boy. And he is, in terms of health. But he's probably the... Well, all the characters are important because they all do different things. But his ability to trade events can be game-changing if you can coordinate all that correctly. Mina has sort of two special abilities at the moment I want to talk about. Firstly, she is what the game calls is weakened. Weakened means when you're already been bitten by a vampire. So if you notice, all of the hunter characters, besides their health pool, it has a little bite token, and they all say 0. 0 and 0. Mina already has 1, so she's already bitten. This has a few different consequences on the game. If a hunter, it doesn't matter if it's Mina or anybody else, when a hunter is weakened, they have to permanently show one event card from their hand, unless they don't have any events, and one item card from their hand, unless they don't have any events. And that is why over here, we've got blood transfusion and the stake showing in a separate section, because Dracula can see these cards. Normally items and events are secret unless the hunters reveal them to play them in a certain situation. But Mina has to have permanently one event and one item showing. If a different hunter, like Seward, got bitten at some point and became weakened, he too would have to show one event and one item. What are the there's an additional consequence to this. Hunters can die during the game, but they don't use the word die, they use the word defeated, but it doesn't really matter, same deal. They come back to life, they go into the hospital and they come back to life again, they can keep participating. But if a hunter at any point during the game receives 2 bites at the same time, they have 2 bite tokens on their character mat at the same time, they become defeated. So you become defeated by losing all of your health or getting bitten twice. But because Mina is already bitten, if she just gets bitten once during the game, she's defeated. The exception to this rule, as Fangs is pointing out, is Van Helsing. Van Helsing has the least health out of everybody, but he does not become defeated unless he has 3 bite tokens on his character mat. So he's more resilient in terms of bites, but he's less resilient in terms of health. So there's a kind of an interesting dynamic there. Mina's the most vulnerable one. You don't want her getting bitten under any circumstance, because she just instantly dies. Or becomes defeated, I should say, because they don't die. That's not the word that they use in the text. You must declare if your items or events if you're trading in the same city. With Van Helsing. With Van Helsing, yes, that makes sense. Yeah. If Van Helsing's in the city with another hunter, and they're going to trade, they have to declare if they're trading the events or they're trading items. But according to the rules, you can look at both, but you can only trade one. But in the digital edition, we only see the items or the events. We don't get to see everything, but never mind. Now, Mina she's already weakened, so she's a weak character because of this. But, because of her bite, she has an additional ability, which is called Psychic Bond, I think is what the ability is called. Basically, she has like this telepathic connection with Dracula, and she has a special ability, which is called Psychic Bond. If Mina, you can do this during the day or night phase, if Mina is in a city with another hunter, she can use Psychic Bond, and she's going to check if Dracula is in the same geographic region as her. So before I use it, you'll notice that the map is split into different geographic regions based upon colours. We've got Britannia over here, Iberia, Gallia, Germania, Italia, Austro-Hungary, and Baltica. I know it's nowhere near Baltic Sea, don't worry about it. we'll ignore that. So basically, if I use Psychic Scan now, I'm basically asking Dracula, are you in Austro-Hungary? Because that is Mina's current location. He is not. Dracula can't lie in this game, by the way. He can bluff in terms of how he moves and things, but if the hunters ask him a question, like, are you in this region, are you in this city, if it's connected with some sort of event, if it's just general banter around the table, then Dracula can say whatever the hell he wants. But if the hunters get an event, or use Psychic Bond or something, Dracula has to tell the truth. He cannot lie. And there's also there's a penalty in the game. In the digital edition, you can't lie. It's impossible. But in the physical version, if you found to have lied as Dracula, there's like a penalty damage you have to take. The game is based heavily on the book. Yes, exactly. Yeah, if you know the media of Dracula, a lot of the things you see in this game are connected with the book, which is really cool. Every hunter character also has a unique event card, which only they can play. They might come up at some point, but basically, Lord Godalming's is called Lucy's Revenge, which is basically an aid to him in combat, but you can only use it once. Seward has a card called Wax Cylinders, which allows him to do a couple of things. Either try and find out if Dracula has hidden on the trail. That won't make sense right now, but Dracula has a power card called Hide. If he uses it, Seward can use the event card to basically ask Dracula, have you hidden, and then reveals the hide and the location if so. Or it also has a thing called deduction where you can search encounters. If this doesn't make sense, don't worry about it. We'll talk about it later. It's not too important right now. The Van Helsing's unique card is called Mystic Research, which allows him to basically rig the event deck so that the bottom cards of the event deck are only hunter cards, and he knows how many hunter cards there are. And Mina's special card is called Hypnosis, which is like a very, very powerful psychic bond or psychic scan, which means she can basically ask Dracula, what geographic region are you in? And then Dracula has to say, I'm in Gallia or I'm in Baltica or whatever. The hunters have to go and find the same city as Dracula to... yes. Okay. So, the basic strategy is... the hunters will discover Dracula in two different ways. They'll either draw an event card, which allows them to find some city along this trail, and then they know where Dracula is more or less, and they can go and get him. Or, if they're moving around the board, and if they walk into one of the cities that's along this trail, then it automatically gets revealed. That's how the game works. Most games normally work where, to get the killing blow, Dracula can take damage in other ways, but to get the killing blow, the hunters have to jump onto Dracula's current location and then fight him in combat and kill him. I've already explained. I've just explained the regions. Unfortunately, in the digital edition, it doesn't show the names, but in the physical board game, there's a book and it shows you what the regions are. But I'll go through it again. We got Britannia or Britannica, Iberia, Gallia, Germania, Italia, Austro-Hungary, and Baltica. There we go. So that's basically it, right? From the hunter side in terms of what they have to do and like what actions they can do, that's basically it. The only things we haven't done are search and rail movement and sea movement. So let's just show you now how that works. So I'll just apply with Godalming. Okay, we got a horse. Nice. We'll talk about things like horse economy and all that stuff in a later video. I'm going to move with a train with Seward just so you can see how that works. So since I select the train movement, the game looks at the tickets that I've got and it shows me all the different places I can move to. You can see this is much further than the red road lines. So if I use this 3-2 ticket, which has the 3 white on it, I can travel from Madrid all the way up to Paris in one move. If I was going by road, it would take me 4 moves to do that. So that's efficient. I'll move Van Helsing into the sea. And then, I guess Mina can just supply. Hey! Okay, so this is how the hunters normally find Dracula, and this is with a card called Newspaper Reports. You can play it immediately, or you wait until dawn or dusk. So I haven't explained this yet, but before the day phase, there is a dawn phase. Before the night phase, there's a dusk phase. Normally, you skip dawn and dusk, except in 2 situations. If there are event cards which can trigger a dawn or dusk, or combat between the hunters and Dracula. And I need to say I made this really clear because there's a distinction between Draculas and other vampires. Combats between Dracula and the hunters occurs either in the dawn phase or in the dusk phase. These are the only 2 things that can happen at dawn or dusk. Certain events can trigger, or you go into combat with Dracula. Other vampires you fight during the day phase or the night phase. So this is probably the card that most hunters try to look for early. It's Newspaper Reports. You can either play immediately or at dawn or dusk. If you play immediately, you reveal the location card on the 3rd space of the trail. This is here. You count from left to right. 1st, 2nd, 3rd. Or you wait till dawn or dusk to reveal the space on the 5th or 6th space. Does anyone play the vampires? Dracula controls what the vampires do in combat. So Dracula controls everything from that side. I'll show you in a second. Okay? We'll switch over to the Dracula side. So let's just go immediately, and let's just find out where Dracula was. Immediately, so it's going to reveal the location on the 3rd space of the trail. Oh, he's in Liverpool, the little devious so-and-so. He's beside Van Helsing, and Van Helsing just moved. Doesn't matter. That's absolutely fine. Okay. He's just celebrating. Nice. So we'll do some tickets. So again, I've got a situation here where Godalming has 2 tickets, and he wants to draw one, so he has to discard one, and then he draws back up to 2. When you draw tickets, you can throw them back into the pile if you don't like them. Right, we'll just do that. I just want to show you one other quick thing before we go on to the Dracula side. You'll notice, where are Van Helsing's actions gone? Where are Van Helsing's actions? That's because Van Helsing is at sea. If a hunter is ever at sea, they cannot do any action at all. They have to skip their entire night phase. They can't rest, they can't trade, even if they're in the same Z zone as another hunter. They can't move, they can't supply, they can't do anything. So you just instantly pass. And then, let's just Psychic Sky with Mina for the Bants, even though we know he's not Hungary. And that's it, okay? So from a basic perspective of what are the hunters doing in just in terms of purely turn order and all this sort of thing, that's it. And you'll notice now, before I'm doing any actions, this thing's just popped up. That's because Speedy Telegraph is a card that could be played at dawn, because we're now in the new day. We've gone into the dawn phase before we go into the day phase for the hunters. But you can choose to activate this or not. I'm going to skip, I'm not going to activate it. There you go. Wait, so why would you want your hunters to be at sea then, just to travel? Yes, because imagine if Dracula goes into Britannia and you send hunters after him. Normally start a hunter in Britannia anyway. But yes, you have to travel. You need to get there. If Dracula lands in Cagliari, you might want to send hunters onto there to deal with the trap that he's left behind, or to actually try and jump on him and kill him. So yes. I will... Let me show you, Julie. So let's actually... let's quit this. But how was that as an explanation? I know you've got a lot of questions. This game is quite deep. But how was that as a general, very sort of quick? Here's what the hunters do. Apologies for my camera not being in its usual position. Can I move into the bottom right? Will that... I think it might be okay there. But how was that? Are we somewhat... Are we somewhat understanding what's going on? If you don't, I completely understand. Okay, right, I'm going as Dracula now. So now I'm going to go over to the evil side of the board. That's a shut up and sit down joke. Right, so here's where the AI is putting the hunters. That's very interesting. Oh yeah, so when you buy the physical board game, the hunter positions are actually predetermined. If you read the rules, it actually tells you where the hunter should go. But in our community, because we play with the most advanced rules, hunters can pick whatever positions they want. You should consider becoming a teacher. Thank you for that. I'll bear that in mind. Yeah, this game has a lot of moving parts. It's harder to teach out the box, and then when you see the overriding strategy and all the event cards and everything, like, what the hell's going on? Right, I'm going to pick a city. So before the hunters do anything, I have to pick a starting city. Oh, come on. We have to start in Edinburgh, don't we? There we go. So there's Edinburgh. So if I... Okay, the hunters are going to move around. The AI is going to do its thing. That's fine. We'll leave it be. The AI in this game doesn't behave like a human does. That's fine. Right. So you'll notice if I highlight this card that's on the trail, it's showing Edinburgh. You see Edinburgh is highlighted up there. Okay, the hunters are giving me event cards because they're supplying at night. You gotta love it. Oh, yes. Yeah. It's like, it's asymmetric. It's like something like Scotland Yard or Layers of Whitechapel. Dracula can see what the hunters are doing. The only thing that's hidden are the items and events, except the ones which are automatically revealed because a hunter is weakened or something. Right, so they've given me another event card, which can either play immediately or play at the end of the Dracula phase. I'm just going to play it at the end of the Dracula phase. So you see what the hunters did there. They did their 4-day turns, which was moving around. And they did 4 supply actions at night, and now it's my turn. It's the Dracula phase. So the Dracula phase is very, very simple. It has a lot fewer options. The first thing that Dracula does is he slides the trail. So what happens is all the location cards which are on this trail slide 1 space to the right, as the way that we're looking at it. Yeah, exactly. Don't watch the AI. Yeah. don't just ignore them. Whatever they're doing, just laugh at it. Okay? So all the location cards on the trail have slid to the right. Then Dracula can do one of 2 things. He can either just do a regular move, or he'll play the power cards. So what I'll do is in this tutorial, I'll show you all the power cards and what they do, but let's just do a regular move. So I'm going to move. So there are two things there's only two places that Dracula can move to from Edinburgh. He can either move down into Manchester, because Dracula can only move one road space at a time. He can, like, kind of... Well, I was going to say double back, but that doesn't make sense. Forget I said that. Dracula can move one road at a time, or he can go into the sea. But he takes damage if he goes into the sea, because it makes him sick. So every time you move from a port into the sea space as Dracula, you take 2 damage. If you move from a sea space into an adjoining sea space, you take more damage. You take 1 damage. So that's how that works. But I'm going to go into Manchester. So move to Manchester. Yes, please. Right. Now we have this screen. So every time that Dracula goes into a city, not with his initial starting location, but thereafter, he can place an encounter card. Dracula has a hand of 5 encounter cards, and these are basically the ways that he messes with the hunters and also tries to get the influence tracker up to 13. So there are different things. So this is a random deck, well, not random deck. The deck is always the same, but the order that it gets drawn is random every game. So there are different things. So for example, you'll notice that there's a vampire in here. Okay. So this is a fighting vampire because it has a health value on it. So if a hunter steps onto this location, we're going to have a bit of combat with it. The reason why Dracula wants the vampires to be on the trail and to survive is the vampires give you points. That's one of the main ways that Dracula can get points. I'll show you what happens in a minute. Let's just throw down this vampire now. There are other cards in here, but again, I don't want to get bogged down explaining what exactly the cards do. But basically, encounter cards mess up the hunters if they step onto that location. But also, if they don't step on the location, then bad things also happen to the hunters. So it's kind of nice. These are things that Dracula uses to try to get an advantage in the game. So let's just throw down this vampire immediately. And now it's asking me this other question. So if you play with the advanced rules, this is something else. So I can place a rumor token. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to put the rumor token on, and I'll explain what the rumor token does later. Okay, but you can basically place rumor tokens onto the 3rd, 2nd, or 3rd space of the trail. So I could have waited a couple of days to place it on that vampire. Doesn't matter, I'll just play it immediately. You can only put a rumor token if it's a city location, not a sea space. You can only put an encounter if it's a city location, not a sea space. And that's it, basically. So we'll just go finish turn, and that's us done. It's asking me if I want to use this event. I'm not very interested, so let's just do that. Yeah, that's the problem with this game. I'm explaining all the rules, and then there's always an asterisk going, under most circumstances. Right, I'm just going to activate this card, because it's going to be very annoying for me that this pops up every single time that the hunters do this. So this is basically a card that means when the hunters move by road, I can basically push them in a different direction. So I'm just going to use this now, because I don't want to be dealing with it every single time they move. So I'm just going to move Godalming this way. Don't worry about the actual... I'm not sure why you're going back to Strasbourg, but okay. I'm just laughing at the AI. Don't worry about the real technicalities of the cards, because that comes up later, and with time, you'll learn all that stuff. I've got, if anyone's watching this on YouTube, I have other videos where we go through in detail all the different event cards, item cards, all that sort of stuff. Great Wolf. Okay, this is going to trigger immediately. So I'm just going to use it immediately, and I will use it on... We'll use it on Mina, shall we? Okay, so Mina just takes damage. Don't worry about that. Yes, Hunter AI is interesting. Yeah, definitely. Okay, so this is my turn. So again, the turn order happens in the same situation. I'll slide the trail. And now I can either move, or I can play a power card, which are these special actions. Let's show you what the power cards are. You only play with the power cards if you're playing with the advanced version of the game. If you're playing brand new, I recommend you don't play with these, or if you're playing with very inexperienced hunters, don't use these cards. But these are cards which Dracula can use to make life a little bit harder for the hunters. So there are different ones. So I'm going to show you this one, which is called Hide. What is D card sliding for? What do you mean the card sliding for? You mean this thing? It's sliding at the top? That's just how the trail... time advances. So Dracula is not you know, his current location is not Manchester anymore, he's going to be moving to a different location. I'll show you, I'm going to play a few turns, Julian, you'll see the consequence of everything sliding, okay? But every time Dracula moves, he slides everything over, because he's not, in theory, he's not in this location anymore. He's not in Manchester, he's going to be moving to a new location. So you need the leftmost space on the trail is Dracula's current location. That's the way to think about it. So I'm going to show you a power card. So there are lots of different ones. We'll show you all of them. But let me show you the hide card. So hide is a little bit of a sneaky one, because the back of the hide card looks like a normal city location card. So the hunters think that you've moved, but you actually haven't. You actually haven't. So hide means you stay in the same location that you were. So I'm still staying in Manchester, but I can put down another encounter. So it looks like I'm doing a normal move, but I'm actually not. There are now two encounters in Manchester, and if a hunter moves on to Manchester, I can trigger the encounters in whatever way I want. So let's throw down the spy, just to do that, and that's my turn done. Very easy. I'm just going to activate this card too, because I'm going to get annoyed with that triggering every time. So I can place roadblocks on the map to block either roads or rail locations, or rail lines rather, for a couple of turns. So let's just throw them down randomly because I'm playing against the AI, so it doesn't matter. Right, Little Big Planet. Yep, spot on. Good thing is playing against the AI. The hunter's turns are very quick. The hunter turn is very quick. Right. It's now going to dusk, so I have to remove one of these roadblocks. If you don't understand why that is, it's just because that's what the card tells you to do. Don't worry about it. Again, this is not about the nitty-gritty, it's just more about the basic things. Right, I've got another event card. I have to play it immediately. Choose one weakened hunter, so somebody who has a bite, aka Mina. I reveal all the item and event cards. I can basically snipe and discard one of them from the hand, and then I move her into adjacent city. So we'll activate it on Mina. She has Sense of Emergency and Dogs. Okay, I will get rid of Sense of Emergency, and then I'll punt her in this direction. Is there a type of roadblock for rail? Roadblocks work on roads and rail. You just choose what line it is. I did... Oh, again. I put these two on I put them on roads, but I could have easily just chosen to block a rail line. I'll just pop it on that rail line. That's it. It's called roadblock, but it does roadblock and rail block. It's not very logical, but that's okay. Oh yeah, you can't block C spaces. That's true. That's a very good point. And you're blocking the connection, not the city. Right, let's do the Dracula phase again, because the hunters have done everything they need to do. So let's slide the trail. Right, I'm going to showcase a couple... See, here's the thing. In Britain, we don't call them railroads, we call them railways. So, there you go. Right, let me show you other stuff. So, I am going to show you this card that is called Misdirect. What Misdirect does is... I'll play Misdirect right now. And I'm going to have to select a location on the trail. I can't do it with Manchester, because Manchester's got a hide. You can't use Misdirect on a space that has a hide attached to it. But I'm going to use it on Edinburgh. So watch what happens with Edinburgh. Edinburgh disappears. The hunter players will see that my first location, they still don't know where it is yet, but my first location has been taken off the board, and I've replaced it with this Misdirect. But now, Edinburgh is available to me, and I can move back into Edinburgh. So I didn't explain this at the beginning, but when you get your deck of the cards that you place along this trail to show the locations, there's only one copy of every city and sea space. So that means if a city is on Dracula's trail currently, he can't move to that city again unless you misdirect it. You can't misdirect sea spaces. So I'm going to put down another encounter. Let's put down the fog, because that sounds fun. And that's my turn done. So this is the way that, yes, I did say you can't use it on hides. That's why I couldn't use it on Manchester, because A, Manchester was my current location, also because it was a hide card attached to it. I'm just using these wild horses because I can't be bothered clicking through that all the time. you'll notice that once Dracula has used a card like Misdirect or Hide, it's on the trail. So I can't use Misdirect again until it falls off the right-hand side of the trail. Same with the Hide. So Dracula's going to be a little bit careful how he uses these power or special cards. Okay, good question. I'll show you how the Misdirect is written properly. It says... a hideout means a location, basically. There's a lot of technical terminology with this game, but a hideout is a location. But a location is basically anything that is a space on this trail is a hideout. Clear a hideout on any space of the trail that is not your current location, not Castle Dracula, not a sea location, or any location associated with hide. You can't also do it with feed or misdirect itself or dark call. I'm going to show you those in a second. Oh, they got newspaper reports. Ah, damn it. So now the hunters know where I am. That's fine. They'll make their way over to me. Not a problem. Imagine explaining this game every time you play with a new group of friends. Yeah, there's a reason why my friends don't want to play with me anymore. Right, so we're going to do Dracula phase. We'll slide the trail again. And I'm going to show you another power card. So I've got a little bit of a problem here, because I went from Edinburgh into Manchester, then hid there, then went back to Edinburgh, but now I'm trapped. If I want to move, the only place I can go to is the North Sea. Because I can't go into Manchester, because Manchester's already on the trail. Ah, but there's a way that we can get around that, and there's a power card that's called Wolf Form. So what Wolf Form allows you to do is Dracula can move up to, doesn't say you have to do this, up to 2 roads away. So if I activate Wolf Form, you'll notice now it allows me to go into Liverpool or London because they are 2 roads away from Edinburgh. So let's go into Liverpool because I'm sure that'll make Yaz very happy. Now, in order to do that, Dracula has to take a damage. Okay, so it's a little bit of it's like a bit of a cost to it, but this is a very powerful ability if you can use it at the right time. I will pop down some bats. And that's my turn done. Now, the hunters know that there's wolf form, because if I click on here, it shows you've got Liverpool, the location card. The hunters can't see that yet. You've got the encounter bats. The hunters can't see that yet. But it shows you they got wolf form. So the hunters know that Dracula's used wolf form and has taken a damage to do so. Oh yes, another thing you can do is you can wolf form, but choose to combine it with hide, so you look like you're wolf forming, but you actually stay in the same location that you were in the previous turn. New players don't do it by accident anymore because of the way the digital edition has been changed. But yes, back in the old days, everyone died to wolf form hide at least once. Behind the veil. Okay, they're gonna take away one of my encounter cards. That's fine. Oh, I should have said, every time you place an encounter onto the trail, you draw back up to 5. If you have, for some reason, if you have more than 5 encounter cards in your hand, thank you, game, then you don't draw back up. You wait until you use your encounter cards on every turn to draw and down to 5, and then once you got less than 5, then you draw back up. Right, Dracula phase again, because the hunters are very quick. We'll slide the trail. I am going to move. Actually, I'm not going to move. I'm going to show you another power card. I'm going to play this card, which is called Dark Call. Dark Call means you don't move, you stay in position, and the hunters know that you've used Dark Call. You take 2 damage, so that's not very good, but you draw 5 additional encounter cards. I'll just do this instantly. Take the damage, and I get 5 more encounter cards. And that's my turn done. That's it. I can't do anything else. I can't move and play a power card on the same turn. So that's me done. Oh, that's right. Dracula also has a hand limit of events of 5, but it's very, very rare that Dracula has 5 events in hand. That's true. Yeah, the digital edition really does a lot of the bookkeeping for you, which is very handy. Oh, is that consecrated ground I spy, Mina? Naughty, naughty. Right, so here's what I'm going to do. I've been given this lovely card from the hunters called Unearthly Swiftness, which says, Blade during the Dracula phase. After this Dracula phase, resolve another Dracula phase. That means I get to move twice in a row. So I'm going to do that. So I'm going to play Unearthly Swiftness. And I'm going to show you what happens. I am going to move into a Swansea. So that's my first move. And I will pop down... What do I pop down? I think I'll pop down another vampire. And then I get to do that again. So I'm in Swansea, so everything's going to shift over. So watch what happens this time. Because now we've got a space which is about to slide off the trail. So the misdirect actually fell off the trail last turn. So I got the misdirect back into my hand if I wanted to use it. But now we've got a location with an encounter. So what happens in this situation is if a location with an encounter falls off the trail, there are two things that Dracula can do. He can lair or he can mature. Lairing is an advanced rule, which means that the location goes into this lair section of the board and you get to place another encounter into there. So suddenly now Manchester has two encounters. I don't want to do that. I want to mature because I want to show you what happens. So I'll slide the trail. And it asks me, what do you want to do with Manchester? And it's got the Reckless Vampire. I can lair it or mature it. I want to mature it. So I'm going to mature. And now you look at all the encounter cards. Normally there's only one encounter card in every location. But as you see, as more advanced strategies are used, you can get multiple encounters into a location. You look at all the encounters and you choose the ones you want to mature. And all the others that you don't, you just discard. Here I've got my vampire. So the vampire or the encounter cards have two different halves to their card. One is the effect when a hunter walks onto the space and you ambush or they search it. The bottom section, this redder section down here, is the mature effect. So if we read the mature effect, it says reveal this location card, so show the hunters that it's Manchester. Advance the influence track, this thermometer up the left hand side, by 4. And then you clear this hideout, basically this location, and the hideout's on the 4th, 5th, and 6th space of the trail. So the 3 spaces thereafter are wiped from the board. So I lose those locations and I lose the encounters. The locations go back into my hand, so I can go to those cities again if I want to, but the encounters get discarded. I'm going to do this. Okay. So I gained my influence. Now, I just said that Reckless Vampire, if it matures, it advances the influence track by 4. But the influence track has gone up by 7. What's going on? That's because there was a rumor token on that associated space. That space means then if you got a rumor token on a location, if the location matures, so it slides off the trail and the encounter matures, and the encounter is a vampire, then the influence benefit that Dracula gains is increased by 3. If it's a different encounter, if it's some other encounter card like Wolves or Spy, and there's a rumor token on it, there's no enhanced benefit. So there you go. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to move into London, because I think what's going to happen here, unless I'm mistaken, is Van Helsing's going to walk into me, and we'll see a little bit of combat, and then we can finish, because we've done more or less everything we need to do. I do need to feed at some point. Let's play some Wolves. We'll create a nasty little trap for Van Helsing. We'll try and kill the old man, shall we? Okay, they're coming. Right, Van Helsing's moving into London, so I want to show you a couple of things. You'll notice that London is revealed. As soon as a hunter moves into a space that is associated with a city on my trail, I have to instantly reveal it. I now have the choice. When a hunter instantly moves into the space, I can activate the encounter cards which are in that space. You're basically ambushing. In this case, I want to, because there's going to be combat now, and I want to beat up Van Helsing before combat. So we read the yellow section of the card. If I don't want to ambush, I don't have to. But the hunters could then search it, and then this effect here still triggers. So each hunter on this city suffers 4 damage, but each hunter may reveal a weapon to reduce the damage they suffer by 2 for each weapon they reveal. So I'm going to ambush. Let's see what items you have, Van Helsing. You have a rifle. So out of the 3 items that Van Helsing's got, here's 1 rifle. So you only took 2 damage, not 4. But at least we know that now. So now Mina does her turn. And now you see it's going into dusk. And look, combat is happening. I told you before that Hunter and combats between Hunters and Dracula happen at dawn or at dusk. So we're in the dusk phase. So the main thing, the way that combat works is rock, paper, scissors. The Hunters have 3 basic cards called Dodge, Escape, and Punch. And all of the items in their hand. There are certain items that cannot be played in combat. But you still put them into your hand anyway, and you can kind of bluff with them a little bit. Dracula obtains a hand of 5 combat cards from his deck of cards, and then every time he plays one, he draws up to a new one. Okay, these cards are random. Well, we know what the deck is, but the cards that you draw are random. You draw new ones for every combat. Combats can last up to 6 rounds. So you either play 6 rounds of combat, or the combat ends if either Dracula escapes, or all the Hunters, because you can have multiple Hunters fighting Dracula at once, escape, or Dracula dies, or the Hunter dies, or is bitten. So the way it works is the Dracula will play 1 card from his hand face down, and so will the Hunter player, and then they flip over their cards. You'll notice on Dracula's cards are these different symbols. If the symbol on Dracula's chosen combat card and the Hunter's chosen combat card are the same, the combat card from the Hunters cancels Dracula's combat card, and then whatever the effect is of the Hunter's card will trigger. If the 2 symbols are not the same, or they don't have a matching symbol, I should say, then Dracula's card triggers first, and then if it's not being cancelled, the Hunter's card also does things. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to play a Mesmerize, because Mesmerize basically cancels whatever the Hunter card is, unless they play something with this symbol. And also, if a Hunter is Mesmerized, they take less damage. Or Dracula takes less damage. Okay, that's very unfortunate. The Hunter played the right card, so because the symbol on the card here matches the symbol on Dracula's card, my card doesn't do anything, and I got punched. Right, now it's my turn again. So I'm gonna play a little bit safe, and I'll play Strength. So Strength is another type of cancel. I'll go into the nitty-gritty a little bit more, but basically, night combats, okay, so the Hunter escaped. Van Helsing's a wuss. He punched me and then left. So we didn't actually see much of combat there, but because Van Helsing countered me twice, my cards didn't do anything. But basically, combats during the dusk or night phase are worse for the Hunters because their weapons can be broken, they can be bitten a lot more easily, and they also take double damage from claws, which is another card that Dracula has. So it's very risky for the Hunters to fight vampires and Dracula at night, but they often have to do so to win the game. So again, there's a lot of different things to talk about, but we can go more into it in the other video. Right, okay. I'll just do a couple more turns, because I want to move off this space, and then I'm going to show you feet, and then we're done. So I'm just going to move into Plymouth, and I'll pop down some fog, and wait for the Hunters to do their thing. I know, it was actually very smart fighting, I know. They're not very good at moving and supplying, but they're quite good at fighting. I'm just going to use this card to cancel this movement. By good arming. If you don't know what I'm doing there, don't worry about it. Okay, Van Helsing's moving over here. So Van Helsing's walking into my vampire. I'm not going to ambush with this. So I'm just going to skip. So Van Helsing wants to search. So that's the thing I didn't explain with the Hunter side of the board. If a Hunters are on an encounter, or on a location with an encounter, or at least one encounter that needs to be dealt with, they can search it during the day phase or the night phase, and then you resolve the top half of the encounter card. Hopefully Van Helsing searches it, because if he does, he has to go into a night fight with a vampire. Oh, he has! More combat! Woo! So this is a night combat because it's during the hunter phase. But the principle's the same. Van Helsing's more vulnerable to claws. He could get bitten. I'm going to play claws here because claws does double damage unless he plays something that cancels the claws. Let's see. Oh, hey, look at that. So you see the symbols don't match. So my claws go through first. So claws does 2 damage, and then because it's at night, it does 2 damage again. Hey, hen, welcome in. And then Van Helsing punches the vampire. And then we get to have another turn. Okay, my hand's not very good here, so I'm just going to play Mesmerize, because I know he is very unlikely to be able to stop Mesmerize, because he's already used his punch. So I didn't explain this as well, because it's round 2 of the combat. Oh, really, Van Helsing? Oh my goodness. Utter troll. Okay, fine. So he doesn't die, he gets out of the combat. So because Van Helsing used punch in the first round of combat, if you're playing, especially when you're playing the physical edition, that punch card stays on the table, and Van Helsing will not get it back until the following turn. So he played punch first round, second round he can't play punch, and then the third round he'll be able to play punch again if he wants. The previous combat card that the hunters play has to stay on the table. But if a hunter has duplicate items, maybe say 2 knives, you can play knife 1 round and then play the second knife the next. You can easily do that. Right, I'm going to do 1 more turn, and then we'll play a game. Has this made sense? I hope so. So you'll notice that in my hand, I've got the wolf form and hide back again, because when that vampire matured, it got rid of the hide card that went after it, and then the wolf form. But the dark core was still on the trail, so I can't dark hawk it. Let's just use feed. And feed's very simple. You don't move, you stay in place, but you just get 3 health back. There we go. That's it done. You can't misdirect feed, so you can't just go backwards and forwards between 2 cities and constantly misdirect and feed. Yeah. If you're learning this game, Dracula's learning curve is much shallower than the hunters. So if you're a new player, I totally recommend playing as hunters. Playing as Dracula. What am I saying? If you're a new player, play as Dracula first. Unless you can get into a team and play 2v1 with an experienced hunter. Okay. Right. I'm going to stop there. But I hope that's explained. There are other things I haven't really explained what layers are very much. During the Dracula game, when I play, I'll probably show you that. There are other cards, like there's this ally from the hunters that was in play. It didn't trigger. Don't worry about it. We didn't go to C, so we didn't take the damage. Doesn't matter. Okay, but look, we gained 7 influence. So you can see. So if I just get 6 more, then we win the game as Dracula. So there we go. I'm going to stop that. So that was a lot longer than I wanted it to be, but never mind. Hopefully that was informative. Is anybody in Twitch chat who have any really pressing questions before I stop the video? Hopefully the people on YouTube, I hope that was useful. There's just a lot going on in this game, and because the narrative of the game progresses a certain way, you want to explain something, but then suddenly something else pops up, so you have to go in a slightly different direction. You definitely know more than before. Well, that's good. I'm really happy. I'd probably just want to do 1v1 because I don't want to be having to think about coordinating with somebody else. I'd rather just explain what I'm doing and not have to worry about hidden items and all this sort of thing. Oh, unless you're talking about another time. If you're talking about another time, sorry, I might have misunderstood. Oh, okay, right. Metking's made a very good question. So, if a hunter is defeated either by having 2 bite tokens or 3 if it's Van Helsing, or if they lose all of their health, they are removed from the board, and then the following dawn phase they go into the nearest hospital. There are 3 hospital spaces on the board, next to Madrid, next to Budapest, and next to Rome. If the place or the city where they died is equidistant between 2 different hospitals, then Dracula can choose which hospital to go into. They go into the hospital, they lose all their events, all their items, and all their train tickets, but then, once they got into the hospital, during that next dawn phase, then they become active again. They can use their first day action to either supply an item, or they can move into the adjoining city. You did Hen, but I'm now going to play a game against the Terminator, and I'll play as the Hunter, so you'll see some strategy going on there. But you missed, like, the 101 explainer. Okay. It doesn't look like there are any other questions, so I'm just going to quickly wrap up this video, and then we'll jump into the next thing. Oh, okay, true. So, Dracula obtains influence. I saw there that Dracula obtains influence from vampires. I showed you that. Dracula obtains influence. He gets 2 influence every single time, plus he gets an additional 1 influence for every single whole week of the game that has passed. Dracula also gets influence from reckless vampires. If reckless vampires ambush and they fang successfully onto a hunter, you gain 1 influence. And also, I didn't explain that there is like a time limit to the game. You can tell I'm a little bit scatterbrained today. There is a time limit to the game. It can't keep on going on for like 10 weeks, 10 in-game weeks. Once the game goes into the 4th week, every single time that Dracula moves into a city, doesn't matter if he's moving into a city that has a hunter in it or doesn't have a hunter in it, or if he's playing hide, Dracula will obtain 3 influence. So there is like a time limit for the hunters to work to try and kill Dracula. But that time limit shifts depending on how many vampires influence and how many other points Dracula can accumulate throughout the game. In most games that you'll watch in our community, if you've got a reasonably experienced hunter against a reasonably experienced Dracula player, the game will normally last until the 4th week, because it's very difficult for Dracula to accumulate influence or significant influence to win the game before the 4th week, unless the hunters are having a mare or it's really, really difficult for them. Yeah, that's true. The hospital space is separate to the main city. That's true. Okay, so last thing is Castle Dracula. So let me quickly go into the library. So there is a location on the board called Castle Dracula. Is obviously Dracula's home. Oh, there's something else I need to talk about. If Dracula moves into Castle Dracula, for some reason it's not showing me. Oh, because there's no backing to it. Never mind. So this is Castle Dracula. It's in between Klausenberg and Galatz. If Dracula moves into Castle Dracula, he gains 5 health back for doing that, because he's returning to his home. But the back of the card, instead of being red, which is the normal color for a city location, it is actually gold. So the hunters know that Dracula's moved into Castle Dracula. In addition to that, the sea spaces, like for example, we've got the Adriatic Sea. I don't know if you can quite see it. No, it hasn't worked. At the back of the sea spaces are blue. So the hunters know when Dracula's gone into a sea space. Depending on their deduction, maybe they don't know what sea space it is, but they'll know instantly when Dracula's gone into a sea space, because A, he takes damage, and B, because the back of the card is blue. There are other things with this game, like always. If you buy the physical edition, there are 2 different booklets. There's the rules reference and the learn to play. Learn to play is what you should be able to do out of the box, but there's a lot of complex rules which are only explained in the rules reference, and there are contradictions between the learn to play and rules reference. It's a fucking nightmare. And it's such a faff sometimes. And there's a lot of rules that I learned only through the digital edition, or the way the digital edition was originally implemented. And when people point out to me, you do realize the digital edition does it wrong, I was like, really? There are lots of things. So one of the things was like unnatural fog, which is in the encounter card. It's really cool because if it gets triggered, Dracula can do lots of cool stuff, like the hunters can't move in and out of the city, which has fog, but also if there's going to be combat in that city, Dracula can choose not to initiate the combat. Unless you go looking for it in the rules reference, you're not going to find it, and there's lots of other interactions that you only know if you really studied the game. It's quite wacky. This is why Digital Edition is really good for learning the game, because a lot of the bookkeeping is done. And it's also had a huge update in the last year or so, which a lot of the bugs and rule implementation errors have been fixed. Metcane is also reminding me that there is a little physical map here it is. This is what Dracula has. So Dracula doesn't have to look at the main board and go, oh, where am I going to move to? Dracula can look at this little mini board and the hunters won't have a clue where he is. It's really neat. It's really cool. The designers of the game, some things they sort of slacked on, but this thing, they really did well. And the board is beautiful. I love the physical edition board. It's very, very pretty. In a gothic horror kind of way. Okay. I think that's everything. There are other rules which I haven't covered, but just because there's so much stuff, this could take like 2 hours. So I think we just stop there, and then we'll jump into a game, and then as other mechanics pop up, we can talk about it. Okay? Oh, I had to take it with me. I've also got the little miniatures. Let me show you. I'll show everybody on camera. Here we go. Here's Godalming. It's the 4th edition, so they're painted. There he is with his gun. We have Seward with his crucifix. I know you can't see that too well, but that's okay. Van Helsing has a stake and a book. There he is. Mina has a pistol, and her scarf is flying through the wind. She is. And there is Dracula, looking all menacing with his cape. Ah. 4th edition was amazing. Good luck finding one. You're better finding Dracula. Yeah, it's out of print, unfortunately. This game has got like a cult status, and it keeps going out of print. But that's okay. Hopefully there'll be a 5th edition one day. But we'll see. Right, okay, I'm going to call this now, but we'll keep going on Twitch. Everybody watching on YouTube, I hope this is informative, and hopefully it's helped some of you. There are lots of other rules, so feel free to leave comments down below if there's something that you're not sure about, and I'll make sure I respond to it. And yeah, there are rules I haven't covered, but the basics of the game are there. So hopefully that's helped you out. And I will see you all in another video all about Fury of Dracula very soon. So take care, thank you for watching. Bye-bye.